The storm had just broken when I stepped inside the estate. Wind clawed at the iron-framed windows. The air was thick with wood smoke and expensive perfume. Somewhere beneath the chandelier's sterile glow, the old Ashcraft house moaned, a draft slipping through its bones like a warning. I stood for a heartbeat too long in the entryway, rain still dripping from my coat. The smell of wet earth clung to me like truth. Then I walked into the lion's den. Dinner had begun. Aunt Melissa's voice rang out from the head of the massive onyx dining table, lacquered like a coffin. "Darling, there you are. We were just discussing asset classes." Of course they were. I slid into my usual seat by the hearth, the flames behind me a reminder of the kind of fire I'd been playing with. Across the long table, Brenda tossed her silk wrap onto the back of her chair with the elegance of someone who'd never taken the bus, never missed a payment, never had to lie to survive. Timothy was mid-sentence, wine sloshing in his oversized goblet. 12 acres in Jackson Hole. Neighbor's a crypto CEO. Whole thing's off-market, no listings, just a handshake over Caviar. A snort escaped Brenda. Adorable. We closed on a vineyard above Montepulciano. Helicopter access only. The kind of view that humbles God. The table murmured in awe. I sipped my tea. No ice. No lemon. Just bitter heat and silence. That silence said more than anything. They didn't know. Not yet. Aunt Melissa's gaze pinned me like a moth. Her smile was blade thin. "Nora, you've barely said a word." Timothy leaned in, elbows on the marble. His teeth were perfect. His intentions less so. "We were just curious," he said, eyes glinting. "How's life in that charming little shoebox of yours?" "Still renting." "What is it?" "Alder Street." There it was. I met his gaze. "Still there." Brenda tilted her head with a pitying smile. "You're 35. Most people your age are investing. Building equity. Legacy." The words tasted metallic. Legacy. As if they hadn't inherited theirs from dead men with oil and secrets. "That space works for me," I said, folding my hands to hide the tremble. It was adrenaline, not fear. If they only knew. The Alder Street building, their joke, my mask, wasn't just a rental. It was West Pine Holdings' first acquisition. My company. My deal. They thought I was scraping rent. In truth, I collected it. Timothy chuckled. "Must be cozy, trying to buy a latte after paying Portland rent." Brenda's laugh was glass-breaking. "You ever think about buying?" Melissa asked sweetly. "A woman needs stability. A future." I leaned back in my chair. The fire licked at the back of my neck. Let them have their moment. Soon, the lease renewals would hit their inboxes. Signed, West Pine Holdings, owner of Ashcraft Plaza. "This house. This room." "I've managed just fine," I said. "A beat." Timothy arched an eyebrow. "Still no mortgage, huh?" Dad stirred for the first time all night. He didn't look at me. Just swirled his glass, watching the red twist like blood. "Now, Timothy. Not everyone's so entrepreneurial." "Sandra just took a different path," Melissa said, that tone women use when they talk about family members with difficulties. "She's always been artistic." They thought I was showing apartments to broke students. Taking commission crumbs. Dreaming small. They didn't know I'd built a $1.8 billion empire in silence under their noses. 10 years of slow acquisition, ghost LLCs, off-market buys. I was the quiet storm rolling over their legacy. Brenda chimed in, eyes lit. "Speaking of real estate, did you hear about that Alder Street mess?" I paused, tilted my head like prey. "Mess?" "Some firm bought the whole block. Going to raise it. Total teardown. Guess your little studio's toast." My pulse didn't change. Hadn't heard. Timothy laughed. "Deals like that are a few commas out of your range, Nora." "Pity," Melissa sighed. "But you can always come back to the guest house. We'd help you find something more respectable." I smiled softly. "I'm happy where I am." Brenda's voice was a whip crack. Boral used to mean something in this state. It still did. Just not how they thought. In real estate circles, West Pine Holdings was known for tenant-first investments, smart redevelopment, ethical growth. I'd built a kingdom without destroying a single family. Actually, Dad said, finally looking up, tonight's dinner isn't just dinner. The board's concerned about Ashcroft Plaza's new ownership. I raised my glass. The tea was cold now. I didn't blink. Not yet. The boardroom reeked of fear masked as cologne. Rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows like it had something to say. The skyscraper groaned beneath the storm, Portland steel and fog making everything feel on edge, suspended, like a breath held too long. I walked in, dark heels clicking against marble. Hair pinned. Expression unreadable. The air shifted as I entered, tightened, like a wire stretched too far. They were already there, clustered in the far corner like a colony of cornered royals. Timothy's tan had faded under the fluorescence. Brenda's eyes darted like a wounded bird's. Aunt Melissa clutched her handbag like a life raft. And for the first time, they didn't recognize me. Just a figure in a navy suit and quiet power. "Who the hell are you?" Timothy snapped, standing too fast, his chair screeching behind him. I set my briefcase down at the head of the table, unhurried. Snapped open the latches. The sound was louder than it should have been. "I'm West Pine," I said. Silence. That kind of silence that crashes louder than thunder. A beat passed. Then Melissa's voice, brittle and distant. "Nora." I looked up slowly, met her eyes. "I told you I'd look like a Boral today." Brenda blinked, mouth half open. Dad didn't move at all, just stared at the audit packet in front of him like it was radioactive. You on the plaza?" Timothy's voice cracked, incredulous. I sat down, folded my hands over the table. "I am West Pine Holdings. Every acquisition, every renovation, every policy shift, it all came through me. I've been the silent partner cleaning up the mess you left behind." Brenda's lipstick smudged as she whispered, "You're behind the audit." "Correct," I said. "And this meeting? It's not a courtesy. It's compliance." Deborah stepped in behind me, silent as a shadow. She handed each board member a slim folder, forensic reports, transaction trails, evidence. Maintenance budgets siphoned for private jet charters. Inflated invoices funneled to shell companies. Misclassified luxury goods. Undisclosed loans. My voice was low even. I didn't raise it. I didn't need to. Aunt Melissa tried to recover. "This is absurd. We've been running this board for decades. And bleeding it dry for just as long," I said. "Ashcroft Plaza hasn't been a business, it's been your playground. You can't do this." Timothy barked. "We're family." "Exactly," I said, standing. "Which is why you thought no one would ever challenge you. But I'm not here as family. I'm here as majority owner." Brenda shoved her folder away like it burned. "You won't get away with this." I stepped toward her, just one pace. Enough for her to lean back. "I already have." Dad finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Why, Nora? Why all this deception?" I looked at him, really looked. A man who used to tell bedtime stories about building legacies, then signed off on every lie this family ever told itself. "Because no one believed me when I asked for a seat at the table," I said. "So I built the table." Outside, thunder cracked, splitting the sky open. Deborah checked her phone. The public ownership statement just went live. A ripple passed through the room. Phones buzzed. Screens lit. Their names were already trending for all the wrong reasons. "You used your own family as bait," Brenda hissed. "No," I said, voice soft but steady. "I used your arrogance." Melissa stood, face pale, pearls trembling. "You've destroyed us." I turned to the glass wall. Portland stretched below, wet, wild mine. "No," I murmured. "I'm saving what's left." And with that, I walked out. The echoes of my heels chased me down the hallway, down the elevator, into a future none of them could touch. Let them tear each other apart in the storm. I had buildings to rebuild, systems to restore, legacies to rewrite. Alone? Maybe, but no longer underestimated. I'm Sandra Borrell, I said calmly. Founder and sole owner of West Pine Holdings, the firm that controls this building, and several others your family's been using like a piggy bank. Aunt Melissa turned the color of ashes. Brenda's lips parted, but her voice betrayed her, silent, stunned. My father sat frozen, hand gripping his pen so tightly I thought it might snap in half. Nora, he whispered, as if saying my name might change the facts. I nodded once. Good morning. Unsnapping my briefcase, I began sliding folders across the table like cards at a final hand. No theatrics. Just the quiet, precise dissection of a lie. Let's walk through your numbers, shall we? This is a joke, Timothy sputtered. You're not. What? I tilted my head. Not the failure you all pitted? The renter? The nobody in second-hand boots? Brenda shook her head slightly, as if trying to clear smoke from her thoughts. But you, show apartments. I built a company, I said simply. I worked while you spent. I created something real, based on value, not vanity. The board sat frozen. Even the ones unrelated to us by blood had gone pale. These folders detail your creative bookkeeping. Every inflated invoice. Every misappropriated fund. Every doctored line item connected to Ashcraft Plaza's accounts. I flipped to the next page and passed it down the table. Timothy, I said, looking him square in the eye, maybe you can walk us through the $2 million in roof repairs that funded your mountain house? He looked like he might vomit. And Brenda, I continued, voice even, your husband's firm billed 3 times the going rate for routine plumbing. Neat little racket you had there. You're airing our filth to strangers? Melissa choked, scandalized. No, I said flatly. You made the mess. I'm just turning on the lights. Dad opened his mouth again, tone softer now. Nora, please, we can explain. I raised a hand, cutting him off without touching him. I spent years watching this family treat a legacy like a personal playground. You mocked my simple life, but while you were posing, I was building, quietly, intentionally. Not to impress you. To do what should have been done. Brenda's voice cracked as she asked, why pretend to struggle? I never pretended, I said. You just mistook discipline for desperation. Timothy blinked, clearly still stuck. So you really live on Alder Street? I do. I also own it. And most of the surrounding block. And no, I'm not demolishing it. Some of us think preserving homes is more important than chasing headlines. A phone buzzed, then another, then all of them. Heads dipped as screens lit up with the same headline. Mystery CEO of West Pine Holdings revealed as Sandra Borrell, quiet heiress behind $2 billion real estate empire focused on ethical redevelopment. A board member's lips moved as she read aloud from her phone. Historic protections, affordable housing, tenant-first investment model. Brenda looked like the floor had dropped beneath her. This will destroy us, she whispered. No, I said firmly. This will save you from yourselves. I turned, speaking now not just to them, but to the room. The rot. Effective immediately, Ashcraft Plaza is under full transparency protocols. No more hidden budgets. No more backdoor contracts. No more exploiting what my great-grandfather built for your side projects and shopping trips. And if we refuse? Timothy managed, though the tremble in his voice betrayed him. I offered a small, professional smile. Then I forward these reports to the IRS and the DA. They'll be much less polite. The silence in the room became absolute. The sound of breathing. A chair creaking. The storm outside pressing against the windows. What do you want? Dad finally asked, not angry now, just hollow. I looked at him. All of them. I want the Borrell name to mean something again. Not prestige. Not wealth. Worth. I gathered my papers and closed the briefcase with a soft click. You have a choice, I said, stepping toward the door. Rebuild the legacy with me. Or pack your bags. I hear Lake Oswego has some lovely rentals. My hand touched the door when my father's voice reached me quiet, wrecked. Nora. I was wrong. I turned back, only enough to see his face. Yes, I said softly. You were. The fallout felt cinematic. Papers dubbed me the Phantom Heir. Journalists couldn't get enough of the quiet Boral who'd silently built an empire and dismantled her own family's delusions in one masterstroke. Melissa quietly stepped down from every board she once boasted about. Brenda's husband's firm collapsed under audit. But not all consequences came with cuffs. Brenda enrolled at a public university. Started over. I heard she began helping at a downtown housing nonprofit. When we crossed paths again, she looked lighter. Tired, but real. And Dad? One day, without pretense or performance, he came to me and said, "Teach me." Not as a father reclaiming power, but as a man finally ready to listen. 6 months later, I sat in my Alder Street apartment. Yes, still mine, surrounded by quiet. Outside, kids laughed. A bakery on the corner had reopened. Ashcraft Plaza was thriving. Leases steady. Tenants secure. Small shops busy and proud. Some empires are built with steel and noise. Mine was built with silence, resolve, and a name I'd just begun to reclaim. A knock pulled me from the spreadsheet haze. I opened the door, and there she was. My mother. No designer coat. No flawless makeup. Just denim, flats, and tired eyes that somehow looked clearer than I remembered. She held up a card. Your invitation came. I nodded. Holiday gathering in the courtyard. She glanced around my apartment, worn wood floors, hand-thrown pottery mugs drying near the sink. Not exactly your usual scene, I said. No, she admitted. But I'm starting to think maybe that's the point. Her gaze landed on a framed photo on the shelf, me at 23, cheeks flushed, holding up my newly printed real estate license like it was a golden ticket. She picked it up carefully. Why this? I leaned against the doorframe. Because I wanted to make something. Not just inherit or borrow it. Something lasting. Honest. She looked at me for a long moment. Something passed between us, acknowledgement, maybe? Then she said, quietly, you built more than any of us ever did. I nodded. But it's not about owning more. It's about doing more with what we hold. Her voice softened. Will you teach me? Come tonight, I said. Meet the people who live here. Hear their stories. That's where legacy starts, not on paper, but in conversation. That evening, I stood at my window, watching as the city lit itself in gold and violet. Ashcraft Plaza glimmered in the distance, not with opulence, but with purpose. No longer a trophy, but a place restored. Beneath me, Alder Street buzzed. Fairy lights looped through tree branches. Laughter echoed through the brick courtyards. Families gathered around tables with handmade centerpieces. There was warmth here not just from heaters, but from history. My phone chimed with messages, consulting requests, keynote invitations, new offers. Westpine Holdings had gone from mystery to model. But I kept the frenzy outside. In here, the pace stayed slow. Intentional. Because real success isn't about broadcasting transformation. It's about living it. 1 week later, at the Alder Street holiday party, I stood near the garden fountain, cocoa in hand, watching something remarkable happen. My family was learning how to be in a space like this. Not own it. Not conquer it. Belong to it. Mom sat beside Mrs. Gregory, who'd lived in the building since before I was born. They spoke in low tones, genuinely engaged. Timothy was laughing as he helped Mr. Frank adjust a strand of lights on the courtyard fence. Brenda crouched beside a table of children, helping them decorate snowflake cookies, her expensive bracelets dusted in powdered sugar. They were different here. Not performative. Just human. They were beginning to understand that wealth isn't what you stack, it's what you steward. My father wandered over, hands deep in his coat pockets. You know, he said, your great-grandfather used to say buildings should be places people feel safe in, not numbers on a ledger. I read his old journals, I replied. He wrote about every tenant like they mattered. Somewhere along the way, we stopped doing that. He looked at me with something close to reverence. You could have destroyed us. I didn't want to destroy anything, I said, eyes on a child spinning beneath the courtyard lights. I wanted to rebuild what you forgot. People often ask me what drove me. Was it revenge? A grudge? Some hunger to prove them wrong? No. It was something quieter. Deeper. I wanted to build something that lasted, not because I had something to prove, but because I had something to protect. If any part of this story feels familiar, if you've ever been doubted, dismissed, or underestimated, then maybe you understand. Maybe you've been building something, too. Quietly. Carefully. While no one was watching. If so, I'd love to hear about it. What have you created in the dark that deserves the light? Let's talk about the quiet work. The unseen effort. The strength it takes to build without applause. Because you don't need validation to begin. You need vision. And follow through. Everything else will come in time. Subscribe if this story struck a chord. There's more ahead, more about redefining worth, reclaiming narratives, and creating meaning on your terms. Because legacy isn't something handed down. It's something you shape, brick by brick, choice by choice. And sometimes, the strongest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living fully as the person they said you'd never become. So stay close. There's more to build.